All right, so we're gonna hit up our cars routine. We're gonna start off with neck. Want to make that circle as big as possible. If you have pain, please stop. We're gonna get 3 each way. The goal is to try to lock in that joint above and below. We're going to transition down to spine. So now we're going to lock in that joint above and that joint below. So hug yourself again, crunch it down. Now we're going to move on to our scapula. Scapula are those 2 floating bones in the back of our shoulders there. They're sit on our back like this. And the goal from a visual representation is to make a circle where they're moving around as big as possible. So we're going to move our arms straight out in front, and you'll notice that my hands will stay still as possible, but I'm going to try to move my scapulas around my body. So a big conscious focus on keeping that joint above, meaning your arms, and that joint below, my ribs and my back, as locked in as possible so I can isolate my scapulas in that big 360-degree sphere of motion I'm trying to get. 3 forward, 3 back, make that circle as big as possible. Now we're going to transition to shoulder. We'll do 1 arm at a time here. A lot more things to manage here, considering I'm going to make a big 360-degree sphere. So what we like to say is keep that side from the ribs to the hip locked in. That foot's heavy, that rib's locked in. And then as we start to move our shoulder, we're going to get as much rotation without changing my body's orientation. So lock in, create pressure, pack the air down and in, come up and across. Notice how my arm is staying externally rotated as long as I can. Rotate that arm in as I come back. And when I get to the side here, I'm going to reverse by pushing my thumb back as far as I can without feeling pain and stopping when I need to stop, and then start to slowly unravel, come back out, down the same way I went up. We're going to go 3 on the right. Locking in that same side position so those ribs and those arms and those hips do not move. Just focusing exclusively on that shoulder and getting as much rotation, flexion, extension, abduction, adduction as I possibly can. We'll go on to the other side. Again, start off with the arm there, pack in that rib, come on up, rotate around. 3. Each circle, try to make bigger and bigger. Once we're done with 3 here, we're going to move on to elbow. On elbow, we're going to lock in our elbow position, so we'll rotate our arms outwards. Now that joint above is now my shoulder, and my joint below is my wrist. So I want to lock those 2 in. I'm going to flex at the elbow, rotate my arm in, come on back down. The other way you can explain this is a supinated position into a pronated position. 3, and then we're going to move on to wrist. Now on the wrist, that joint above is this forearm, so I want to avoid pronating and supinating. I want to stay in this fixed position, and that joint below are my fingers. So I want to lock in my fingers and lock in that forearm. If I'm struggling, if I'm going here and I'm moving my arms, we can simply lock it in and create a block here. If I'm struggling to maintain my finger position, I can just make a closed fist. But as a whole, we want to start off here. Forearms are pointed in the same direction as we start. Come on in, Make the circle as big as you can coming around. And then we're going to rotate facing the other way. If you're struggling again to keep that forearm fixed, just grab that wrist. If you're struggling again to control your fingers, make a closed fist. Goal is to make that circle as big as possible without making any changes at the forearm or the fingers. 3, and then we're going to move on to hip. So hip, we treat the same way as our shoulder, lock in that same rib position. For balance, grab on something to solid. I'm just going to do this directly in front of you. So we're going to bring this knee up. I'm thinking lock in that rib position, lock in my torso position, bring that knee up as high as you can, rotate, pull that knee out. As I'm pulling it out, my sternum, my belly button are pointed straight ahead. Rotate while keeping that knee up. Push that knee back, a little bit of extension, and then we're going to come on back, drive up and around into the start. We're going to go 3 each way here. Remember, keeping this torso in this fixed position, so I'm not rotating, I'm not leaning, I'm not bending. I'm just trying to stay as locked in. It's like a statue up here. So other leg is locked in. Make that circle and that sphere as big as you possibly can. Imagine I have a dot that's going over my knee. I'm trying to make that dot, make it as big as possible circle as I can. We'll go on to the other side here. If you're struggling to maintain position, even holding on, create tension on the opposite side. So if I want to create something here, I'm holding on here, create tension, lock it in. It's just about giving feedback to get that right joint moving at the right time and the right sequence. We're going to go 3 each way here. Make that circle bigger and bigger every time. Create tension, create stability. Lock in that joint above by not leaning and not collapsing. Control your body while you move a joint through space. Last 2, we're going to make our way to the ground. So we're going to find something stable, seat here. We're going to hug the back of our leg. So if you can, create as much of a lock or anchor point on that joint above, or that bone above being our upper leg. And we're going to try to fix that so I can get as much rotation at this knee with the shin rotating out. So we're going to start off with the shin rotating out. We're going to extend up, rotate that shin in, come on down, keeping that leg pointed in, come on up, extend, come on down. And we're going to repeat that process 2 more times for a total of 3 reps. We're actually going to stay on the same leg. And we're going to lower our guard. So we're going to simply lower that guard down to our shin now. So I'm locking in that joint above. And this looks similar to what we're doing on the wrist. It's exactly what it is. We're going to treat the wrist the same way as our ankle. It's just hard to govern our ankle without giving some feedback here. So we're going to go 1 ankle at a time. We're just going to make that circle as big as possible. Now fortunately, you can't really see my toes, so that joint below is a little easier to manage on our feet than it is our hands, because we have more dexterity there. But we still want to be cognizant of where my toes are going as I'm making this circle around that ankle. 3 each way there, and we're going to transition to the other side. So we'll go the lock here, brace it up. We'll go 3, and then we'll lower ourselves down to our shin, and we'll finish off on that final ankle. That's it. We're going to open up today with some rocking, nodding, and rib rolling. So just get yourself on all 4s, knees, and then we actually like to start off with our feet a little closer together. And as we go through this, if we're feeling like we want a little bit more of a stretch, we can widen out our knees, and then we can simultaneously widen out our feet. But just start off in a good, comfortable position. We're just going to transition forward and back. If you feel like you can get pretty good flexion of your hip, meaning getting your butt all the way back down to your heels, just widen out your knees just a little bit, make it a little bit more challenging. Goal of this though is just working on some flexion of the hip on this quadruped position, trying to get a little bit of mobility in the knee, get a little bit of mobility in the hip. As you go forward, you can widen out a little bit with the feet and get a little bit more of a stress and a stretch going on into that hip. 10 here. Once you're done with 10, we're just going to sit back down on our heels. We're going to lock in that lumbar position. So when I'm flexing the hip, that low back actually locks in, which is a really good thing to figure out because we're going to go through some cervical motion here, meaning some nodding. So we're going to look up and down. And I want to get true motion going on that neck. So I want to lock in that joint below, specifically that lumbar, so I have no motion going on there. We're going to go 10, up and down, trying to get that chin as high as we can and that chin as low as we can. Once we're done with 10 there, we're going to go into rotation, or as we say, just say no. Try to get that chin as far over that shoulder as you can. 10 each way. And then we're going to transition to lateral flexion, or bringing my ear to shoulder. So we'll line up our head with our shoulder height. Try to touch that ear each direction. And we'll go 10 again here. And we're going to finish up with some rib rolling. So now with that lumbar position locked in, we're trying to create as much rotation in our thoracic spine as we possibly can. So sit your butt back down on your heels and just lock in that lumbar position. We're going to slide that hand underneath, grab your rib, pull without that hand sliding. So we just actually want to truly rotate as much as we can, and then back down. We're going to go 5 each direction here. And then we'll switch. 4 and 5. So we got everyday program, practice 4. If you notice, this is very similar to what we did on practice 2, the double kettlebell set and clean. The only thing we're changing is the volume. And it's based off this concept of grooving the pattern. And what we mean by grooving the pattern is getting enough frequency and enough kind of consistency of these exercises so that pattern just becomes locked down. And we talk about this all the time doing high rep volume swings, is we're governed by our biomechanics. So what we can do movement wise really dictates what we get out of it. But there is a certain level of saturating our, like that movement or like that muscle or that quality of that movement over a period of time so we can get the best overall benefit from it. So we're thinking like, oh man, this is very similar to Thursday. Just come back and layer it, build onto it. Like, oh, I was really struggling with that transition off the floor. I was really struggling on that transition coming up from that rack position, going up to that rack position. I was really rushing that rack and going right back down, and I was losing my back position. Everything has to go up sequentially, even if the volume's going down. So if my technique is going in the right direction, it's a win. It's a huge day for us. If I have a better rack position, if I have a better set position, if I have a better transition, win, win, win. That's the whole goal of this everyday program. It's not doing overly complex things. It's doing very simple things really effectively, and then doing that over and over and over again. So we do get the transition back to a barbell or a dumbbell or these great tools that we have here. We're in a much better position relatively speaking than what we were before because we did this concerted effort and we did really consistently good work. All right, so without further ado, today's program is 5 sets of 5 kettlebell set and clean. So remember, we start with the kettlebells on the ground, we hike it back, we shoot it up our arms, we're making contact on the way up as opposed to letting it crash, which I'll dive more into as we go through the sets to help me rest. And then we'll go through those 5 sets of 5, we'll break, and then we'll go into our post work. All right, so let's get set up. If you don't have 2 kettlebells, remember we can just use 1 where you just go through that single arm set and clean, 5 and then 5 on the other side. So if you need me to pause or if you need to stop it all, just press pause and then let yourself catch back up if you want to keep up if you're following at home on YouTube. All right, let's make sure we have a great day today. Attack this with a zest and a passion that all our Allegiate members have come to know and expected here. All right, so let's get a good set position. Chin tucked, back flat, chin vertical. Grab the bells, set 1. All right. You need to pause if you're still going through the second arm. Please do so. Good opportunity to talk about grip. We're going to be governed by a couple things. So if you notice, most kettlebells have a thicker diameter grip. It's a big reason why we love that tool. It's a big reason why we love fat grips and sphere grips and all different sorts of fancy grips that we can use here in the weight room because of the governor, right? So if you look at what we want to give out, we definitely don't want the back to give out before the arms. So if I use straps and I'm like really trying to rely on the passive nature of something just fixed in my hand, and then putting a lot of excess load on other joints that could have a lot bigger impact down the road, like my back, my hip, my knee, my shoulder, my elbow. You know, we're getting away from the root of what we're trying to do, is develop some sort of movement pattern funneled into some sort of fitness quality, whether it's fast or heavy or long. And nice thing when we put these governors on here, it prevents that excess and gets us past that point where we can't surpass or recover from. So if we're like really struggling with grip, like, man, this is really crushing my grip, it's intentional, and we want that effect because we want to make sure that we're loading your system appropriately and developing up the qualities. Grip and fitness and technique should go up in the same level, so we're never overriding the system's capabilities and doing more than what my back can handle, or my hip, or my knee, or my elbow, or my shoulder, etc. All right, so without further ado, let's get our second set here. Remember, we're building, all right? Make sure we have a great start position, a great end position, and an equally a great transitional position. All right, couple cues. When we're transitioning out of the bottom and we're trying to create upwards, you know, we see a lot of times, and you see this all the time with Olympic weightlifting, is we move the bar or the kettlebell around our body. We're not thinking the other perspective, right? That I need to move whatever joints and elbows and body around that object, right? If you think about the most efficient path is the shortest path. And whatever I need to do to create the cleanest, straightest line to get to point B is relative to moving my body around that object. You know, so analogous into weightlifting, you see, oh man, I got to pull that bar really high. Reality is you actually got to pull that bar fixed height and get it lower. So it's a mobility problem, it's a speed problem. Same thing with kettlebells. If I think about I need to pull the bell up to here and then let it come down, you see this big crashing effect. But it's this minimal effort to accomplish the task. It's just being more efficient, and that leads to higher overall volumes and getting more work in that direction of period. But also less breakdown, and less breakdown of our body, more sustained effort. We'll get to our end goal or point B, whether it's improved body composition, improved fitness, improved strength, all these things with less breakdown and injury, which is our goal here, is always looking at putting rate limiting factors, understanding the goal of the exercise, finding out the biomechanics to do it most efficiently, and then just doing the work, putting in the work consistently over and over again to hopefully get us to point B without any injuries and having to sacrifice all that we really know to be true of moving around, feeling healthy, being happy, in order to get to a better level in terms of fitness or performance or whatever else we want to go. All right, so let's go set 3. Understand that that bell's got to stay tight, and then I got to drive my arm underneath it. So I make contact here, and then I rotate underneath. So it's almost like I'm uppercutting my chin, not bringing it up this high. All right, so set 3. Let's set up. Great start position. Contact up. Okay. We've got 2 more rounds. You know, one thing I want to go into on this is, as we're going through this, is imagine now when we have a better rack position. So if you've been coming here and we do kettlebell front squat and strength class, and you're really struggling to get it up to the shoulder height, you're going to be limited by what you can clean. So if we do want to get increased leg strength and we want to use kettlebell front squat, the biggest factor that impacts that is whatever I can clean to my shoulders. So here we go, right? I have now a really good opportunity to make a bigger impact when I return by just taking this time and improving that ability. And this is not an easy exercise, and I don't want to diminish just how challenging that is and try to make it seem like, oh, well, you can't do it, that's not you. It takes time to develop the skill and be proficient on it. But we also know that whatever you can clean is going to be the overall load we can get on your lower body in this particular exercise. Or if we do overhead press or any other exercise, right? Like if I can't hold a RDL position or hinge position and I'm trying to stress my upper back, it's not necessarily what I can pull horizontally, it's what I can hold in that position is the limiting factor. So that same framework is knowing that we need to use these compound multi-joint movements in a free weight kind of position, but there's transitions and there's a technique to get to that position. And if we're limited by our ability to get there, then we're only going to get to load those legs so much. What a good opportunity to come back and say, let me rehearse and reestablish great position and technique on this so I can grab those 24s because I've only been able to clean up the 20s or maybe grab the 28s or the 32s and thinking about how much more I can get out of that training session when I do a kettlebell front squat again. Or on the other side of it too is we can add layers of complexity if we're at home. Right? So if we're just doing double kettlebell clean, we can do a double kettlebell clean to a front squat. We can do a double kettlebell clean to a push press. And we can add layers there. And we can add more and more and more built off of learning this fundamental piece to start this up. All right, so we're going to set 4. I know it's kind of a lot coming at you, but think about how this could lead to something bigger and better as we go through collectively and we come out on the other side. I'm going to get a little quarter turn here so you guys get to see a different angle. All right, set 4. Whew. All right, we got one more round. If you think I'm just talking too much and you want to go, just go. I get it. We should be improving our fitness systematically. We should be improving the quality of what we're doing. And that's just a reflection of good training. So if you're putting in the work and this feels easy, that's a good thing. That means you're getting in better physical shape. That means you're getting better technique. You're moving more efficiently. And to be honest, you know, what a great way to look at this and what a great way to approach this setting of like, I am smoking these workouts because I'm recovering and I'm adapting. And we're still applying all those other things we know we need to do, sleep, hydration, vegetables, knowing when we eat proteins and having carbohydrates based off the need, and then building that into the system too. And it's a reflection of everything, right? Like adaptation is not just us going, oh, we picked the perfect set and rep scheme. It's the aggregate of everything from your lifestyle, your habits, your consistency, and then leading into some sort of positive outcome from what you invest your time into. All right, so when we approach this last set, finish strong. There's an area that we can all work on, whether it's a better rack position, better transition, a better set position on the floor. Focus on that. Make this your best set. Get 5 really good reps. Place the bell down, put it back where you normally do, and we'll finish off with a stretch. All right? All right, that's every damn day. Stay strong, stay cool, stay safe. So L-DO, we got 3 big stretches, L5, S1, T8, T9, and T6, T7. Now, here's the logistics of this all. You know, a lot of us don't have a lot of available wall space, specifically close to the ground. So hopefully we can give some strategies where we can go over some different things to hold those stretch positions while still getting the same effect. So if you have a wall, obviously put your legs up on the wall. That's our easiest, most tangible way to do L5, S1. If we don't, we're gonna grab a chair or a bench. We're just gonna put our legs up on the bench like such. Now, when our legs are long, the rule is dorsiflex, rotate in. When our knees are bent, now we're actively pushing our toes forward. And we call this position that knee bent position because we're trying to create an anchor or a fixed point. And you'll notice automatically that's going to rotate your femurs in. From here, L5, S1 is all about creating distraction. So I'm going to press up. And then in this position, I'm pulling my fingers back and then pushing my palms away. So while I'm in this position, I'm pushing my toes forward and I'm pushing my hands away to create as much separation essentially from my toe and my palms as I possibly can. In this position, focus on your diaphragmatic breathing. We're going to hold this stretch for 60 seconds. If you don't have a stopwatch or a watch at all, you just don't know how to count for whatever reason, it's nice. It's actually easy to count your breaths. Each breath takes roughly about 4 to 5 seconds. So if you get roughly, what's the math there? 10 of them? Yeah, about 50 seconds. You're probably in a good spot right there. So we'll go 10 deep breaths in that position, slowly unwind, and then transition out. So the second one we can just do right here on the ground. Remember again, with our knees bent, we're rotating our toes down into the ground. So this is T8, T9. So pull your heels in, rotate your big toes down into the ground. We're going to pull our torso forward. Now, if this is what I got while I can hold this position, this right here is better than that. And what I mean by that is we're looking for full flexion and pushing my palms as far away from my heels. And we're talking about distance. This is actually better than that. So we want to create that position of anchoring my toes in, fixing that pelvis, and then we want to pull our torso as far away from that as possible. And if I don't have adequate shoulder flexion or hip flexion, we just need to go here. All right, so option 1, set up here. Option 2, hold here. And again, we're going to hold this for 10 deep breaths in or 60 seconds. And we'll slowly pull ourselves out of that. Last one, T6, T7. So we're going to set up our legs wide. We're going to pull our toes in because our legs are long, and then we're going to rotate them down. Remember, every time my legs are extended, I take this dorsiflexed and internal rotated position of the leg, and then I go into my stretch from there. From here, now I'm trying to pull out on these facets or these transverse processes in oblique direction. So instead of going straight up, we're going to make a Y. And we're going to hold this stretch position for, again, 10 deep breaths or 60 seconds. Awesome, thank you guys. We'll finish up with some breathing. We're looking for breathing as this normal sequence thing we're trying to do depending on our position. So the first order is going through how we want to breathe. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth is the appropriate timing and rhythm of this. And what we're doing on that is to creating a really good diaphragmatic contraction, as well as teaching inhale and exhale kind of a focus there. And what we're going to do is change our position. And really we're just going to define, like, for you, find the position where, depending on how hard you just trained or what our ultimate goal is, to get the best respiration mechanics possible. And we have 3 different positions we can really leverage here. You know, the first position is going to be a crocodile position. So I'm lying on the ground. I have my hands underneath my forehead, and then I'm just going to breathe in that position. And that is a great position for general relaxation. We have a lot of surface area on the ground, so we can get a really good, relaxing breath work done. Now, what's interesting behind that, though, is I'm actually pushing against the ground with my stomach. So now when I inhale, I have to create more pressure, so I spread myself out over that ground. So if I'm struggling to take air in, a crocodile position might be a really good strategy for you to use. The second position is a 90-90. So you can find a wall, you can find a bench, you can find something like a couch or at home, where I'm putting my feet up on that fixed position. So imaginary chair underneath my feet here. And what that is it's going to be a little easier to take air in because I don't have anything blocking it. But you're going to find as I breathe in, maybe that low back comes off the ground. So I need to be a little bit more efficient at creating stability without that external feedback, but we need to be really good at pushing that air out. And you can further accentuate that up by elevating and pushing through your heels and creating what they call a hemi-bridge. And that's going to take that pelvis and put it in a different position. And that's going to create a whole different emphasis. If you're normally a person that inhales and arches their back, it might feel really, really challenging. You might feel a cramping sensation. And now this is taking respiration and breathing into a little bit more of a training exercise. So depending on where we're at, if we're really struggling with inhalation, get on the ground, go crocodile breathing. If you really want to work on more mechanics of breathing and work on more exhalation, get into a 90-90. And then the final position is an inverted position. So you can go up on, stacked up on some books, or you can just simply take our body at a negative angle, meaning that my hips are higher than my torso. You can just simply go in a kneeling and elbow position. And the goal being is the more inverted I am, the more requirement I'm going to have for exhalation. And it's going to be harder to take breath in, so you actually feel a premature block in there, because when we breathe, that diaphragm actually contracts, and we're going now against gravity. Right? So normally that diaphragm can just drop and descend. It still contracts, but it has the assistance of gravity. Now we're actually going against gravity, and we have to push up and away in that. The more inverted I am, the more impact it has on that, and you'll feel a premature block on that. And what we really need to do on that is taking it away from that inhalation and more towards the exhalation. And now we have to really work to push that air out to really create that pressure that we need. And as we go through the spectrum of this, I just train my tail off. I'm really tired. I really want to get some good parasympathetic kind of breathing and relax, go into a crocodile position. If I'm feeling okay, and I still want to work in some good strategies, whether inhale or exhale, but I want to get a little bit more impact from that, go into a 90-90 position. And then I really want to work an exhalation strategy. Get into that inverted position, elevate yourself on some actually pillows or some books, or if you have some balance pads at home, to get a little bit more of that negative pressure so I can push against the impact of gravity with that diaphragm. Find whatever strategy works best for you. Still going to keep that same rhythm of breathing in throughout the nose. We can accentuate that diaphragmatic contraction by pushing our tongue to the roof of the mouth. We can accentuate it a little bit further by getting a cadence to it. We can hit a 4-4-8 tempo, meaning 4 seconds in, 4-second hold, 8 seconds out, and then we can actually utilize the final 4, holding that breath out for 4. And what this does is really tries to control and give some deliberate emphasis towards that specific area that we really typically need to work. And that focus on breathing out with a forceful contraction to activate that diaphragm in any position is always a great strategy. If you just want to relax in breathing and do an inventory from head to toe, also great. But make sure that we're getting this breathing component in, especially in these periods that we feel like we're having a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stuff that we just simply have no control over. Get grasp of how you can control that 1 to 2 minutes at any given day, that whenever you want, through your breathing.